So many of you have probably already encountered glorious gameplay like this, or this, or this, or wait, what's that? Stop finesse dribbling. Ooh. What's this double touch? This was not KOLLER's head. Here comes Pepe. Welcome everybody! Today I want to discuss why gameplay like this is very bad for the game and should not be possible. The best way of showing what's wrong about it is just going through a game. Since I feel it wouldn't be okay to make a video without testing this myself, I had to get KOLLER. As he's a Bundesliga legend anyway and I fondly remember him and the good old times, I thought, Pepe, what could possibly go wrong? Yeah, turns out everything. First, 3 things to learn from here. 1. Don't go in. 2. If you go in, be ready to go all the way. 3. If you don't have disposable funds, stay out. You might end up paying 2 AAA games worth for a single player of 1 game. Before I had this channel, I was free to play too. But let's get back to the topic. I'll explain everything along the way, why this is bad, what to do against it and how it should be fixed. My opponent was a bit outside of top 1000 and for my crossing I used Kimmich, Sneijder and Gnabry on the side. As you can see, I don't really have perfect players for this as I usually don't cross spam. I'm not even good at it. So I managed to win the ball quite far up the pitch, passing it on to Gnabry, little L-stick move, cross, header, goal. The first and biggest problem I want to address is the reason why these headers always go in, and that's manual shooting. If you play with normal or basic as it's called shooting and you are in a contested aerial duel, your player will get a penalty so that even if you win the aerial duel, the ball is a lot less likely to even reach the goal, let alone go in. Manual shooting circumvents this penalty, making the ball always go exactly where you aim, which in my opinion makes this sort of an exploit, but maybe that's just me. In fact, if you use basic shooting, even uncontested headers sometimes don't go in, because that is how the game balances headers to make sure cross spam isn't too powerful. Again, manual shooting circumvents this balancing. Let's move on. So my opponent then started to tight mark Gnabry. Good reaction, for real, great choice. Then throw in for me. Passing it on to Gnabry. I press 3 buttons, cross, header, goal. I've read a couple of times on socials that all you have to do is man mark the crosser and cross spam no longer works. I disagree. All you need to do to deliver a decent cross is be a tiny bit ahead of the opponent's player. And there's so much you can do. The dummy run that I just did, for example, where you can turn, or here when the opponent expects you to run straight, you just cross with the worst foot. Same result. You could also do a Marseille turn or look at this here. As I usually don't cross spam, I lack the relevant footage, but let's just pretend that Pedro Neto here is Gnabry and Dwight York over there is KOLLER. KOLLER would be a bit more south though, but you get it. So Gnabry Neto doesn't even have the 2 other people you'd usually have with him on the side. Instead, he's alone and kinda cornered by 3 people. Boom. Now what? It took a single feint and now I'm in a position where with a crossing formation and KOLLER positioned correctly, this is a decent chance of a 100% goal, provided nobody with crazy jump height contests KOLLER. And that's another problem with this. Without manual shooting, it wouldn't be anywhere near 100%. It would be fine. Think of what it takes to get a close to 100% chance without manual shooting. You really need to be uncontested and or close to the goal already. Or think of what it generally takes to get a close to 100% chance of scoring even without crossing. You need to be close to the goal and have somehow outplayed the defense already, because otherwise the defensive AI will step in. It's just not good for the game that you can create such great chances so far away from the goal from so many different positions and angles seemingly out of nowhere with very little effort. Look at this for example. I just move up with Sneijder. If you have at least 3 people on one side, one will always have a bit of space. KOLLER is very far away here, but I think if I was used to manual heading and would power and aim this correctly, it could even be another goal from this distance. Anyway, let's move on. The thing is, I think we haven't even seen the worst of this yet. As of now, you at least know that cross spammers with manual shooting will only cross spam all game long. But what if they start to vary and, like I did here, also attack through the middle? This was my fault, by the way. Should have stunning shot earlier or use a normal shot. Might have even gone in, and I have no practice with manual shooting. Oh, and by the way, wanna know what happens if the ball just bounces to one of your players from here? Cross. Header again. And trust me, there are so many things cross spammers could do to improve it even further. I don't even want to mention all of it. Just showing you this here. Game moves on. As you see on my controller, I'm changing to a sub-tactic to move Gnabry and Snyder to the other side. That's another reason why this needs to stop, by the way, as one might always feel the need of going into the menu and adjust, then the other one pauses and so on. Like, please. Anyway, I changed to the sub-tactic. This makes Gnabry move to the other side. He's moving very slowly, might be because I don't have the ball, could also be because he has counter target. I didn't test it specifically. See, he's still far from the position he will move into. Now, I win the ball, and conveniently, Gnabry is marked by Tony Adams, not Koundé, as he usually would be. So now you can see, since I won the ball before, Gnabry suddenly sprinted to his position and is quite a bit ahead of Tony Adams, allowing me to pass to him. From there on, you know what's gonna happen. You see, there are tons of shenanigans like this you could pull off. The defender is always disadvantaged because it's essentially a cat and mouse game. Now, what can you do to improve your chances? Two things basically. One, make life harder for KOLLER. Two, make life harder for the crossers. For one way is to pull out your keeper manually. As soon as you expect the cross, use manual goalkeeping and run towards the striker. Here, I was actually pretty late. A bit earlier would have been better, especially if the cross wasn't so close to the goal. Also, this was a normal cross, which is why my keeper can react so early. You can see on my controller that I'm still sprinting towards the striker, because if it was an edged cross, the ball would be higher up and your keeper would only be able to do something once it gets closer to the striker, unlike here. This is risky, especially if your opponent plays with an additional aerial threat and can choose who to cross to. Cat and mouse game again. But if you can pull it off, you can actually stop KOLLER because keepers can use their arms and beat any striker in the air. Besides this, you also want to make sure KOLLER has the lowest chance of winning the aerial duel as possible. To improve a player's aerial duels, physical contact and jump height matter. KOLLER will come with 103 physical contact and almost 299 centimeters jump height. Your best defensive option is nominating contract Isaac Touré. 99 physical contact, 296.4 jump height. He can take on KOLLER and greatly reduce the aerial colors, the aerial duels KOLLER will win. A few things though. First, you want to give him a man marking instruction because otherwise, due to his low defensive awareness, he could sometimes be late to aerial duels. Also, make sure to give him the necessary defensive skills. Second, while he is the ideal choice to win aerial duels, he has terrible acceleration and defensive stats, making your defense vulnerable in other areas, in case a cross spammer doesn't only resort to crosses. Third, his stamina isn't that great, and since KOLLER has a counter target instruction and more stamina, Touré might tire earlier. Just for the record, if Touré was to reach 15% stamina, he would only have like 75 jump and 80 physical contact left. Fourth, and that's the biggest problem, he's not available anymore. You either have him or not. Instead of him, you could go for the standard Isaac Touré card. These builds are just anti-aerial suggestions, by the way. However, this card is even slower, even worse defensively, and has even lower stamina. Purely from an aerial point of view, it will work though. Another option is Seydine Ndiaye. 295.4 centimeters jump height is enough to challenge KOLLER. All the other stats though, not so good. Now what about the two Van Buitens? Let's start with the new one. He has 292.6 jump height, so 6.3 below KOLLER. While this is still enough to tune KOLLER down a bit, Van Buiten isn't as effective as Touré. What's good about Van Buiten though is that even with a full aerial build, he absolutely outclasses Touré in every other aspect. Bayern player, what did we expect? The old Van Buiten that more people might have is technically slightly better in the air because he has one more point in jumping due to the defending booster, resulting in 293.3 jump height. All the other stats that matter, new Van Buiten wins. Now you probably wonder, what about the aerial forward players? Well, Rüdiger's jump height is like 285. He'll have a very hard time and aerial forward Ford won't help him at all. Van Dijk has 289.3, which is already a massive difference compared to KOLLER or Touré. Aerial Ford won't help him either, as Amadeus tests have shown that Fortress Van Dijk performed similar against KOLLER. So the last one remaining is Ta, who has 291.4 jump height. Aerial Ford might help him a little, I don't know to be honest, but he's also significantly worse than Touré. Let's continue with the game. Here's a generally useful tip, by the way. If you get into an aerial duel, you are sure you will lose, like for example Gnabry versus Tony Adams here, especially if your opponent has a good position, you can just super cancel and run where he will head the ball to. Unfortunately, Gnabry let the ball bounce, but the play was correct. Now here's another example how it's just impossible to avoid all crosses for the duration of an entire game. I'm just a little bit ahead and can cross. Opponent's keeper steps in though. Now ball bounces to Pirlo. Bellingham being all free and can cross now. This was my fault, my aim was slightly off. If I aim at the upper corner properly here, it's a goal. But as said, bear with me, I've never played like this. Now back to the second point I've mentioned before, making it as hard as possible for your opponent to even get to a cross. Basically, man mark the winger, and if your formation allows, move one or two midfielders closer to the strong side of your opponent. Also, be sure to have a sub-tactic ready in case your opponent just switches sides with his sub-tactic. On top of that, pay attention if he, for example, switches positions among his side players to battle your marking. It's annoying to just pause and adjust, another reason why this should be gone, but it is what it is. Also, KOLLER will always try to start his runs from afar rather than directly from the middle, as he wants to force the aerial duel against a side back rather than a center back. Make sure both of your formations avoid this and that you always have your best aerial player against KOLLER. If your opponent uses two aerial forces, look how he aligns them and how they match your players in game to know if and for whom man marking is necessary. Yeah, I think that's it. Now for the last scene of the game, throw in for me, dummy run from Pirlo to Bellingham to Gnabry, another dummy run, and here it comes. Crossheader, 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 Flanke köpfen, Mütze glatze. Apologies. So the only thing left now is how to fix this, what to change. I think it's actually fairly simple. Only make manual shooting available if you also use passing assist 4. This way, you're not only handicapping yourself anyway, respect to those who play PA4 by the way, but you'll also have to aim your crosses instead of letting pass assist do this. If this alone wouldn't fix it, just apply the same penalty to manual shooting in aerial duels that you have when you use basic shooting. Then this would be over. Like really, for me, I felt bad playing like this. It really felt like using an exploit. I prefer more of a dribbling and passing style, but to each their own, I guess. Won't judge anyone. That's it, folks. Let me know if you liked this video. I'd love if you subscribed, liked, or commented. Until then, guys, take it easy. Shaka!